Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
There's been movement in the case against a Waterford Township man accused of killing his wife. However, the wife's family not happy with what happened in court. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Kimberly Gill.
And I'm Devin Skillian. Justin Wagenberg is accused of beating his wife to death with a wrench while she was sleeping back in October of 2022 in Waterford Township. Wagenberg has since been found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Sean Lay is live on this story. And Sean, you were with the family today. There's a mountain of evidence that they will never get to see.
Let's talk about that, because there is a mountain of evidence here. When someone commits a crime, like a murder in this case, and is legally found insane at the time of that murder, there has to be a preponderance of evidence to pile up, take the court, and this ruling be made. In this case, there is lots of evidence in Katie's murder, but the family will never see it, and here's why.
It's the rage, you know what I mean? Just get angry and then, you know, yeah, frustration. There's a lot of that going on.
A little more than a year ago, Jim Doherty's daughter, Katie, was taken from him in the most shocking way. Katie's husband, Justin Wagenberg, beat the beloved and gentle hairdresser with a massive wrench as Katie slept. That was nightmare number one. Nightmare number two came last week in court. A plea of not guilty by reason of insanity by Wagenberg was accepted by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office after 2 psychiatric exams were done on Wagenberg, and both doctors agreeing that there's a preponderance of evidence that Wagenberg was legally insane when Katie was killed. But Katie's family will never see that evidence. Medical records are kept private by law. They will never see what those doctors agreed upon, that Wagoner was insane. The Wagoner they know as Katie's husband was different.
We could have learned all the details. I begged them. I emailed. I talked to her. We talked last week. Have the judge waive his HIPAA rights so we can see the proof of why he's insane. We never thought he was insane.
Katie's family feeling like they are kept in the dark about the details.
We asked, can you have the judge waive it so you can prove to us that he's insane? Prove it. Prove it.
You have the right to know.
And they would.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
No.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. That's what I kept saying. There's something wrong.
Back here live, Katie's dad saying there's something wrong here. They know the ins and outs. The prosecution has walked them through what was happening in court. Defense attorney, prosecutor, judge, all agreeing that this guy was not guilty, essentially, by reason of insanity. The family walks out, Devin and Kimberly, no years attached to him for taking their daughter's life. No years. He's not going to go to prison. No years attached to him going to a psychiatric facility. He's up for review once every year. And for this family, they've been through a lot. They said that opens the door just slightly for an early release. Maybe unlikely, but it's a concern for them, for sure. Back to you.
You can understand the pain for them, no doubt. All right, Sean. All right, let's turn now to the growing backlash against Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib after she made comments online that some say promote anti-Semitism. Some of the strongest condemnations are coming from members of her own party.
But Tlaib is standing by her comments. Will Jones is live with what the Congresswoman is saying now and the calls for her to apologize. Will.
Kimberly and Devin, we requested that Congresswoman Tlaib speak on camera, but instead her office released a statement where she defended her word choice, accusing her critics of distorting her words. Metro Detroit's Jewish community responding to Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's characterization of From the River to the Sea as an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence.
I really ask Representative Tlaib, who is a Palestinian American who really could build those bridges, is doing anything but by using these terrible, painful slogans that are anti-Semitic because they are about demonizing and eliminating the Jewish state.
Members of her own party in the state weighing in today, including Attorney General Dana Nessel, who is Jewish.
You're not helping your cause at all by utilizing the type of language that, you know, is pouring salt into wounds for us.
I don't agree with the Congresswoman's sentiments or statement.
Tlaib standing her ground, releasing this statement. My colleagues are much more focused on silencing me, the only Palestinian American voice in Congress, than they are on ending the horrific attacks on civilians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank right now. Instead of attacking me and distorting my words, they should listen to their constituents and call for a ceasefire to save innocent lives. Palestinian American activist Khaled Tourani coming to Tlaib's defense.
Rashida Tlaib has been a voice for the Palestinians when there are hardly any voices for the Palestinians, but then to try to demonize her and to try to change the subject about the ethnic cleansing that is ongoing in Palestine against the people of Gaza, I think is disingenuous, and I think it's appalling.
Tarani says Tlaib is using her voice to speak for many Arab Americans who are concerned about the plight of the Palestinian people and the Biden administration's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. We are live tonight. Will Jones, Local 4.
All right, Will.
And Tlaib's comments come as Secretary of State Antony Blinken ran a gauntlet of diplomacy this weekend. Tracy Wilkins joins us with the latest as talks for a humanitarian pause to the fighting continue.
Israeli troops may enter Gaza City today or Tuesday in ground warfare that's expected to increase casualties on both sides of the conflict. Hamas is reporting that over the weekend, Israel struck a refugee camp in Gaza, killing dozens, according to NBC News. Israel's military is not commenting on that claim. This as U.S. Arab allies are pleading with the U.S. to rein Israel in.
Human values dictate that we work for peace and we stop this madness.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken heard those calls firsthand during his weekend trip to the Middle East.
Every country I talk to is looking for us to play a leading role with our diplomacy to try to make progress on all of these different aspects of the crisis.
Blinken spent the weekend building support for President Biden's call for Israel to take humanitarian pauses in Gaza to help free more than 200 hostages, including some Americans, and allow for the safe transport of food, water, and medicine. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his allies are rejecting calls for a pause.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to do what he wants to do here. And look, this has been obviously the pattern with him with multiple U.S. presidents.
Protesters across the globe and in the U.S. held demonstrations this weekend.
Bring them home.
During Sunday's New York City Marathon, pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian supporters holding dueling protests. In D.C., tens of thousands of protesters called for Israel to cease fire, something the U.S. does not support.
Palestine! Free Palestine!
While mostly peaceful, those protesters left their mark, smeared red handprints on the walls and gates of the White House, representing blood. Blinken is calling conversations with Israel an ongoing process. He says the U.S. is concerned about getting aid to Palestinian civilians and the toll that this has taken on them. Israel is saying that they're expecting the war to continue for several more weeks. From Washington, I'm Tracy Wilkins, NBC News.
All right, Tracy. You know, it is in the 60s right now in some parts of Metro Detroit, so some are trying to squish its way back in.
Probably not. Kim is here. Kim, I remember you saying we're seeing some of the warmest temperatures we're going to see all week today.
Yeah, today is the warmest day of the week. It gets noticeably cooler by about 10 degrees starting tomorrow. 60 in Pontiac, still 61 in Mount Clemens, 59 in Flint, and 57 in Sandusky, but most areas are in the upper 50s to low 60s, a good 15 degrees warmer than we were yesterday at this same time downtown. We're 17 degrees warmer in Mount Clemens and 13 degrees warmer at the airport and in Ann Arbor. Certainly a windy day. Metro Airport had a wind gust at 41 miles per hour. 45 mile per hour gusts came through Lansing. That's when a line of thunderstorms moved through earlier this afternoon, did produce some hail and also a lot of lightning north of I-69. So we didn't get in on that action here in Metro Detroit, and it is going to stay dry through Election Day tomorrow. We start out at 47 degrees, a little more clouds tomorrow and also cooler temperatures as our high only makes it to 51. We'll talk about what the rest of the week holds coming up in a few minutes.
Well, we first saw the disturbing video last summer. A Warren jail guard attacking a jail inmate, the man simply standing before the officer with his thumbs in his pocket. Now, we couldn't hear what was being said. We did see what the officer did, and it cost him his job. Well, today he found himself in federal court as the case against him proceeds. Rod Maloney was there for the arraignment and has more here. Rod.
Well, Devin, originally this case had both state and federal components, but now the state case has been folded into the federal case, and a new indictment came out at the end of the week last week, and they had an arraignment here today in downtown Detroit. Today, the federal officer was in court, and he faced a magistrate. Tuesday, June 13th, inside the Warren Police Department fingerprint room, the surveillance camera caught all the action. Whatever Jaquan Smith said, it wasn't audible on the recording, clearly angered now former 14-year veteran Warren police officer Matthew Rodriguez to the point of violence. The video shows Rodriguez slapping Smith hard in the face, throwing a knee at him, pushing his face into the wall, picking him up by his belt and slamming him to the floor, punching him repeatedly and pulling him up by the dreadlocks and slamming his head on the floor. This as two other officers look to end the altercation. The federal indictment now charges Rodriguez with what's known as deprivation of rights under color of law, which comes with a possible 10-year jail term if convicted. Legally, that means as a law officer, Rodriguez used unreasonable force against Smith. Rodriguez is also charged with falsification of records, the indictment saying when Rodriguez filed his report about the incident, he knowingly lied about what happened. That comes with another major prison term if convicted, 20 years in prison. The indictment claims that Rodriguez filed what's called a blue team use of force report with Warren PD and said he only struck Smith once in the face. Furthermore, the feds say Rodriguez also left out the fact that he later pulled Smith up by his hair and pushed him into a holding cell with two hands and slammed the door behind him. Now, Rodriguez stood mute, and the judge entered a not guilty plea for him today. He's been released on $10,000 personal bond. No date has been set for the further proceedings to come. Live in the newsroom, Rod Maloney. Back to you.
Okay, Rod.
An Inkster man is facing charges after prosecutors say he threatened a judge over the phone. Prosecutors say Antonio Clark called 22nd District Court Judge Sabrina Johnson last week multiple times and made several threats. Clark was arrested just a few days later. Officials also said Clark attempted to flee from the Inkster Police Department. He's due back in court next week.